Okay, I've got something for you. The new parts have been fitted to the car. The simulation numbers are good, so look forward to your feedback. Check out the details.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the F1 Career Mode here with Sauber. It's part number 3, and as you can see right at the start of the episode, we get a part upgrade that we purchased at the start of the season back in Australia. That is successfully now on the car, and we've moved a little bit closer now to McLaren in the overall progress history. So maybe we can have an opportunity to challenge them in qualifying. Maybe no longer will we end up in the background. I'm also showing you this to display who else has been making some performance improvements. And as you can see, Haas has actually moved in front of Toro Rosso in terms of the standings there. Also, a couple of other teams have moved slightly. I think Williams on there, but Red Bull have also made a little step forward, trying to close that gap between themselves and the top two teams, Mercedes and Ferrari. They're in a little bit of a BMW Sauber position that they were in back in 2007 when they had Heidfeld and Kubica, and they were clearly the third best car, but they just weren't quick enough at the time to challenge the top two runners unless they kind of messed up in terms of strategy or they had poor qualifying or whatever. But I'm hoping that Red Bull can close the gap on those two teams, and us and McLaren can close the gap on those midfield teams. So just so we have a really competitive field though. But in order to do that, we need resource points, and in order to get resource points, we need to go into practice. So let's get into practice 1 now.
Welcome to the deserts of Bahrain, where the Formula One circus has rolled into town. We're expecting the cars to appear out on track shortly to start today's practice session. A lot of focus is naturally on the drivers, but it's really important for the mechanics to get everything right as well, as one little mistake could cost the team and one of their drivers the race result.
These guys are so meticulous, and they train and perfect everything that they do. Without question, they feel the pressure in the same way as the drivers, and they share the responsibility to ensure that the car makes it to the end of the race.
Alright, here we are in practice 1 here at the Sauber International Circuit on a very hot and sunny day here in Bahrain. Starting off with the track acclimatization. A little bit trickier to get to nail this circuit, primarily because there's a couple of tricky corners around here that are quite difficult for me, primarily turns 9 and turn 10 prior to the back straight where the second DRS zone is. But anyways, we come across the line for the second lap, and we were able to get the maximum number of resource points available for the track acclimatization, which was good. We then moved on into the fuel saving practice program. Now this is something that we really have been struggling with the last 2 races, and again here today we weren't able to get the maximum amount of fuel saving available, but we just about managed to pass the good fuel saving and get a good chunk of resource points from that at least. We then moved on into practice 2, and see the light is fading a little bit, primarily because the second practice is run a little bit later because it's a night race here. We then moved on. We're currently on the tyre management test, and again, like the fuel saving, we're unable to get the maximum amount of resource points available from that. But it's one of those things. We also had Sebastian Vettel behind us for around half a lap, which was really trying to put me off. So went up the inside of him just to show. I wasn't particularly happy with him putting pressure on me. But then Vettel just goes completely around our outside in turn 2 and turn 3. The superior super soft tyres and also the Ferrari chassis and engine shows how much we are behind the front runners in the overall performance chart. But anyways, we're here in practice 2 again, doing the race strategy this time. We also did qualifying off camera, primarily because we've really been struggling to try and nail qualifying at this particular circuit. Maybe because the track just doesn't really suit us, or we were trying to find a suitable setup. So I was trying all sorts of different things to try and extract as much out of the car as we possibly could. I only just managed to get the primary objective in qualifying before we actually then moved on to the race strategy. Did get the maximum available number of resource points as the Toro Rosso of Carlos Sainz blitzes past us here. We're going to go up the inside of him though into turn 1. A little bit more of a simpler manoeuvre than compared to what we had on the Ferrari of Vettel earlier. But yeah, that was the end of the practice sessions. We then moved on into the engine power unit situation. Now we decided to put in our second power unit of the season to give us a little bit more fresh engines, primarily for qualifying and for the race. Maybe that was the reason why we were struggling in qualifying, because we were down on a bit of power, because a couple of the components are starting to wear out a little bit. They're in the yellow zone rather than the green zone. So let's see what happens if we put in our brand new fresh engine. Let's see if we can generate a little bit more power down the straights, and that will ensure us to see if we can have a good qualifying today.
Cars are ready, the drivers are ready. We hope you're ready as qualifying is about to begin here in Bahrain. So then, Ant, it's another Grand Prix weekend, another exciting qualifying session ahead of us. What are you going to be looking out for over the next few minutes?
The first question is going to be who can avoid making mistakes. There isn't much margin for error in qualifying, and you have to bear in mind that the track conditions may have changed since practice, particularly as we've had a few support races in the meantime. If the brake bias settings, for example, don't take this into account, it's extremely easy to lock up a front wheel and cause a flat spot. Just like that, your lap's ruined and you've wasted a set of tyres to boot.
Alright, here we are to start the qualifying session here in Q1. Starting off on the super soft tyres. We decided to go for a couple of laps on the this set of super soft tyres before changing the tyres and see if we can get an improvement in lap time. So this first lap is really just to try and get a lap on the board here, not really trying to go as fast as possible. Oh yeah, trying to go as fast as possible, but I wasn't too fussed if I made a mistake here or there, just so we've got a lap time on the board and that we've got that delta time that pops up on the right hand side of the screen. As you can see, we've set our first lap time, currently down in P6 at the moment. That's mainly because only 6 drivers actually set a lap time. We then come across the line again for a second lap, and we did improve our lap time a little bit. Unfortunately, didn't gain any places there. And we've now come on to the our final run. This is our 4th lap on on a new set of tyres. We're actually now at the back of the grid here, so we've got to see if we can try and get a bit further up the field here. But we are improving this lap time here. Let's see where we end up. And unfortunately, it is 19th place again. So the same position that we managed in the last 2 races, but unfortunately, we were unable to beat the objective that the team has set out. They expected us to start in 18th place. And also, that was annoying, to rub salt in the wounds, is that Pascal Wehrlein actually beat us for the first time this season in qualifying. The positive spin on this, though, is the fact that we've managed to get both cars in between the McLarens. So we're no longer occupying just the back row of the grid. We're actually in the mix with those McLaren drivers. So that's perfect. Let's see if Pascal Wehrlein can actually get in front of one of the McLarens today. I think he did beat one of them in China, but it would be nice to see if he could try and get past Alonso as well. It's now cut to the resource points, obtaining resource points, and also our driver rivalry. Wehrlein does just gain a little bit on us because of the fact that we lost out to him, and we lose a bit of interest in terms of the team rating and also the other team ratings. But the other positive is that we've now got enough resource points to actually upgrade another part of the car, and that what we decided to do was upgrade a bit of the aerodynamics side of things, especially the fact that we've got a couple of high downforce circuits coming up, such as Spain and Monaco, and also see if we can get on terms with the likes of Force India and Haas, who based off this performance rating, they haven't got that much aerodynamic performance on the car. So be interested to see if we can get a little bit close to those two guys. But anyways, that's enough of me rambling about qualifying and resource points. Let's get on with the race.
Has showed us many times in the past, though, Anthony Davidson, that a good strategy will only take you so far. Beyond that, you need good racecraft and you need good consistency.
And a little bit of luck too, I'd say. This is one of those circuits where the safety car always seems to come out just at the right time to condense the field together and mix up the cars on different strategies. It's hard on brakes, it's tough on fuel, and the main overtaking opportunity is down into turn 1, where it's easy to outbrake your opponent and potentially have a bit of argy-bargy as well.
With that then, let's run through the grid order. An immense lap from Lewis Hamilton yesterday puts him on pole position, and it's Valtteri Bottas that completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Vettel, Raikkonen, Max Verstappen and Stroll, Ricciardo, Massa, Perez and Kevin Magnussen, Kvyat, Ocon, Romain Grosjean and Hülkenberg, Sainz, Palmer, Fernando Alonso and Pascal Wehrlein. A Sauber and Stoffel van Dorn completes the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
Keep your eyes open on the run to turn 1 and keep it clean. We want to come out in one piece. Good luck.
Thank you, Jeff. Here we are on the grid, ready to start the Bahrain Grand Prix race. As you can see, we're currently deciding what strategy should be the best that we should do. What we first off decide to do is that I'm going to give myself a little bit more fuel in the car, primarily because I just want to have a little bit of fuel in the tank so that I can actually push rather than having to deal with fuel saving. I think the fact that we've had to fuel save quite a few times, especially in China, meant that our pace was affected. So what I decided to do was I decided to go for, after a bit of deliberation, went for the higher tyre management strategy, one less pit stop, you never know, we might get safety cars that might bring us back into play and allow us to jump a few cars as the race progresses. But we're on the formation lap now. Aims of the race, obviously, to try and get ourselves in front of our teammate. That's the objective for the race, and finish in 18th spot or higher, and also try and get in front of Alonso maybe to have a little bit more of a ding-dong battle like we did in China. But yeah, as we now come to the end of the formation lap, I was really the AI decides to take control as it normally does towards the end of the lap, but it weaves really closely to Pascal Wehrlein at the end. So I was very nervous at the fact that it was going to run into the back of my teammate, and I'd already have front wing damage prior to the start of the race. But fortunately, that didn't happen, and we are able to take our grid slot prior to the race beginning. So without further ado, we're a couple of moments away from the start of the Bahrain Grand Prix. Lights out and away we go, and unfortunately it's not the greatest of starts from our end, but fortunately for us, Van Dorn hasn't had a great start either, so that's why we've managed to maintain position. The other positive is that we've now got a free run into turn 1 as all the other cars are concertinaing up due to the cars in front of them braking. So we've got the inside of several cars. That's a Renault, I think, on the outside there, or inside of turn 2. We managed to overtake. That was Jolyon Palmer. Had to brake a little bit earlier though into the turn 3 because of the cars concertinaing up. I didn't want to run to the back and lose my front wing. So now got the inside into turn 4 of Esteban Ocon and potentially the Haas of Romain Grosjean. But the second Frenchman is able to fend us off as we head up towards turn 6 and turn 7 to start the second sector. We try and go for a late lunge up the inside into turn 8, making a little bit of contact with the Haas. There's a bit of a clumsy manoeuvre on my behalf, but as we can see, Grosjean still manages to keep his car around the outside line, which turns into the inside for turn 9 and turn 10, arguably the two toughest corners of the circuit to get right every time. Unfortunately, that was our opportunity blown when it came to fighting with Grosjean for now. But anyways, the action didn't stop there on lap 1 as Esteban Ocon tries to get the position back from us up the inside of us into the final corner, and is now ahead of us as we start lap 2. I try and stick in the slipstream of the Force India, but look at this, Jolyon Palmer is trying to have a piece of the action here, and he's trying to read past us after we took him into turn 2. So we got the inside of Ocon there to retake the position here. We're up into 15th place as the two Haas drivers look like they're going to go toe-to-toe with Grosjean just behind Magnussen as he goes up the inside into turn 4, like what we did to Ocon on the previous lap. Unfortunately, we're unable to, despite Grosjean's pace, we're unable to then try and challenge Magnussen. That Haas car is still a little bit quicker than us overall in terms of the overall car performance. As we now come to the end of lap 2, Ocon now trying to go around the outside of us this time, making a little bit of contact with us as he tries to barge his way through. We give him a little bit of space on the outside. That was probably the wrong thing to do though, because Ocon's now got the drive as we head onto the main straight to start lap 3. Palmer as well has got a great drive off the corner and is now overtaking us. Is now going to try and go up the inside of Ocon. We could brake a little bit early and then we decide to cut to the inside, a bit similar to what Daniel Ricciardo did to Sebastian Vettel in Monza 2014. But unfortunately the move doesn't fully work out as Palmer is able to get us back as well. He's managed to make up position on Ocon. As Ocon tries to go up the inside prior to turn 4, we're trying to maintain the position. He has a nose up the inside, but we brake a little bit later than him and also go up the inside of Palmer as well. So we've managed to wrestle the position back there as the two drivers now go side by side. As we now come on to the start of lap 4. DRS is now in operation as Palmer blitzes past us prior to the braking zone of turn 1. But like what we did with Esteban Ocon, we're able to fend him off by going up the inside of him as we did to Ocon at the end of lap 1. We cut to a few corners later. We've actually got a yellow flag in play, and that's going to actually trigger a virtual safety car, and the car that was parked up on the right hand side was the Toro Rosso of Daniel Kvyat. So that's back-to-back retirements for the Russian here, and it's also 3 virtual safety cars in as many races to start the year. So we've not short of drama when it comes to virtual safety cars. Here's on board the Toro Rosso, and this is what actually happens to him. His engine gives up as he's under pressure from one of the Haas cars, probably Romain Grosjean, as he's been working his way up the field right there. But that's him out of the race, and we're now up into P14 as we come to the end of the virtual safety car right now. We've got a little bit of an advantage over the 2 other drivers, so that means we were actually safe for that particular lap. But then 1 lap later, they've managed to catch right back up to us as we start lap 6. Ocon's going around the outside, trying to go to the outside. Palmer up the inside here. Both have got DRS in operation. Ocon locks up into the corner. He's going to go wide a little bit, but he's going to have the inside line to turn 2. We're able to take back Palmer, but then we've now got to lost the position out to Ocon, so we've got to try and stick with him as best as we possibly can as we head up towards turn 4 and try and make a late break maneuver up the inside. Go up the inside there, just about make the corner there, but it was really, really close to us completely overshooting and losing the position back to Ocon there. But you'll notice we actually gained a couple of positions there. That's because a couple of drivers actually got drive-through penalties for speeding during the virtual safety car, so we gained 2 positions there for now. We're now up to 8th place as some drivers are actually making their first stops of the race, primarily the guys that are on the 3-stop strategy that are near the front of the grid, as we have managed to fend off Ocon as they are now going side by side. As we come on to the end of lap 8, it's actually our first pit stop lap, and a couple of other cars are also going to be coming in behind us. I think both Palmer and Ocon are following us in, so it's going to be a battle of the pit crews between these 3 teams. Let's see if the Sauber mechanics can deliver here. And thankfully they do a good job, and I think also the fact that Ocon actually held up Palmer's release there meant that we were able to maintain position between those 2 cars, which was fantastic. We're rejoining now, currently in P15. A couple of cars have yet to make their first stops, but McLaren are actually on a very interesting strategy. They're on a much harder. They've started the race on the medium tyre, so they're going to be ones to watch, especially as Ocon goes up around the outside of us. As our teammate Pascal Wehrlein exits the pits, we now go back up the inside of Ocon again, and we're able to take the position back as Wehrlein looks like he's managed to rejoin in front of some cars. So he might have jumped someone in the pits, but I think he actually loses position again as Ocon now tries to go around the outside of us at the end of lap 10 at the prior to the DRS zone, which actually means that we get the DRS on our side because Ocon was actually in front of us prior to the DRS detection point. So that's going to give us a little bit more straight line speed, but unfortunately that Mercedes power in the Force India has meant that he's still been able to stick with us as we head up towards the turn 1 braking zone. Palmer's also looking to try and get up the inside as he actually tries to go side by side with Ocon again as we come up towards the turn 2 and turn 3. He's managed to get back in front of him for now, but then Ocon's able to regain the place, and now we're at the end of start of lap 12 actually, taking our best lap of the race. Ocon goes completely straight past us now with the now that he's got the DRS back after his mistake of giving us the DRS previously. Anyways, we now got the inside of him, and actually as we cut to the I'm going to cut to a little screen here. Ocon actually got a stop-go penalty for making a collision with Palmer. I think it was mainly because of that side-by-side action that they had a bit earlier on. But anyways, now Palmer is in front of Ocon again, and I think that's because Ocon's actually struggling with a little bit of engine problems, so that's a little bit of frustration for the Frenchman. So he's got a penalty and also the fact that he's got a bit of an engine issue. So anyways, now we're on to the end of lap 13. This battle between ourselves and Palmer and Ocon just continued for the majority of this race. Palmer now goes around the outside. He's on the soft. Everyone's on the soft tyres for now, so that's an interest. No one's really deviating in terms of the strategy as of yet. As we now come to the end of start of lap 18. So basically we were able to fend them off a couple of other times, primarily because they were a bit too far behind us. We actually have a virtual safety car though in play as Ocon actually gets past us, which was a bit of a poor timing in terms of the virtual safety car there. So I've technically lost position there, and it looks like Ocon's going to remain in front of us. But fortunately he does have that penalty to take at the second round of stops, as we now see what was causing the virtual safety car, and that was Romain Grosjean's engine expiring. And it wasn't really a great race for the Frenchman after his positive start. He was one of the drivers that actually had to take a drive-through penalty due to speeding under the virtual safety car. And now his engine has given up, and he is now out of the race. As we now end the virtual safety car. Unfortunately, we didn't have the greatest of drives off of turn 10, so we weren't able to stick with Ocon so that we could make him move up the inside. We're now coming into the pits though. Fortunately for us, Ocon is actually coming in at the same time as us, so that means we're going to retake the position back from him. So it's really going to be a battle between ourselves and Palmer as to who's going to take the position.
Go, exit now. We're racing on the exit.
Oh, goodness me, that was really close to being an unsafe release there. That would not have been ideal, but we managed to keep our position ahead of Palmer. He's actually on the medium tyre, which is quite interesting, so he's at least going to get to the end of the race. I'm a little bit marginal with these soft tyres, but we'll have to wait and see. The strategists think that the soft tyre was the better option, and they're going to be able to last. As we now come to the end of lap 20. We're taking our best lap of the race. Palmer is already much faster than us despite being on the harder compound tyre. And Ocon is also having a resurgence after his penalty. We then we go back up the inside. Palmer locked up a little bit, which is why we're able to take the position back. And Ocon is now back in front of Palmer after his penalty. So it's going to be another interesting final few laps here as Ocon had really good drive off turn 10, is now trying to get around the outside of us into turn 11. But we've got the inside line. This is actually one of our better parts of the circuit. We were really quick through this section of the circuit. We were able to fend off the Force India round the outside there of turn 12, which is quite impressive. As we now come to the end of lap 21, Ocon again is using that straight line speed advantage to maximum effect. He's going around the outside. Palmer trying to follow through as well. Going up the inside again, though, braking a little bit later and forcing Ocon wide so that the Renault and the Force India now have to fight each other again. I think they also made contact again, which was no love lost between those two drivers. We cut to the end of lap 22. Ocon again trying to go around the outside. He's just tried all sorts of different techniques to try and get past us. Unfortunately, this Grand Prix is not China. It was a little bit too easy for Ocon in China to overtake us. So I'm making myself as wide of a brick wall as I possibly can to this Force India. As again, going up the inside again. Palmer is also again in the fight. It's just nip and tuck between all three of us. It's a really, really good scrap between all three of us. It was absolutely fantastic. We've now got blue flags though as we come to the this penultimate corner of lap number 24. Palmer and Ocon have let the leader through, and that is actually Sebastian Vettel. So the Ferraris have managed to get themselves in front of both Mercedes, which was interesting. So that's going to be a debriefing and a half for the Mercedes team if they end up losing this race. As now Palmer is trying to go up the inside here. We've got DRS because of the Ferrari in front, but Palmer is just so close to into the wall there. We're giving him just enough of a car's width to get up the inside there. As Palmer, I think, unfortunately, is unable to make the move there. It's just about hanging around the outside for Palmer, but also Ocon on the outside there, which was interesting, as both drivers actually back out of it, with Kimi Raikkonen now trying to make his way through. And we've also got the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton trying to make his way through. He's actually on the softer compound tyres compared to the Ferraris. I think that's the different race strategies that are in play here. So we've only got now 2 laps to go as we come to the end of lap 27. It looks like we're going to be in good shape. Unfortunately, we're going to lose out to the McLaren, but unfortunately, we've picked up a gearbox problem on the penultimate lap of the race, and unfortunately, that's going to affect our straight line speed down the straight, or acceleration down the straight, and Palmer's already passed us, as is Ocon, so we're going to have to be really, really aggressive on the brakes. We come up into turn 1 here, just about get the car slowed down. As you can see, the gearbox is now really struggling. We've lost 4th gear, as you can see right there, so it's really going to be a real struggle to see if we can stay in front. Especially as I don't use manual gears because of the button configuration on the controller is really, really stupid.
Looked at the gearbox issue, but I'm afraid there's nothing we can do. Try and drive around it. We'll just have to hope for the best. Remember that you have a lot of torque in these power units, so you should be able to stay in higher gears for a lot of the lap.
Thank you, Jeff. He's giving us a little bit of encouragement here as we come up towards the final couple of corners of the final lap here. But you can just see how much we're struggling. As you can see, it's just going from 3rd to 5th, 3rd to 5th, 3rd to 5th. And that's just going to cause us to have no acceleration off that straight. As Palmer tries to go around the outside, last-ditch manoeuvre on us. We've forced him out wide, though, and that's going to compromise his acceleration. So that means our gearbox isn't going to be too much of a hindrance. We now come across the line. We're going to come home in 15th place.
Great effort there from Ferrari to take the victory today. Well, I'm thoroughly exhausted after the excitement of that race, but I'm sure it's nothing compared to our drivers here. They've worked hard to make it up there, and it's great to see them make their way out onto the podium. And after this round of the World Championship, Here's how things look in the drivers' table. It wasn't the best weekend for our championship leader, and their advantage at the top has been reduced. And now I'd like to ask you, Anthony Davidson, who was your driver of the day?
I'm going to say Stoffel van Dorn. It was probably one of his best drives this season. I was thoroughly impressed.
And here's how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship. Ferrari extend their lead at the top of the championship. Another team that excelled today was Williams, who make further progress up the table. After all that excitement, it's time for a lie down, I think. Thanks for joining us, and goodbye until the next race.
So confirmation of the results of the Bahrain Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel winning his first race of the year. The hat-trick of victories now for Ferrari. Raikkonen in second. 2 Mercedes in third and fourth, with Hamilton ahead of Bottas, followed by the 2 Red Bulls of Verstappen and Ricciardo. Perez in 7th with Massa in 8th. Sainz in 9th, and Kevin Magnussen picking up the final point for Haas in 10th. So it was a bit of a sluggish start for the Dane, but he's able to get points on the board. As you can see there also, McLaren managing to get ahead of us in 13th and 14th respectively. A much better strategy from their end to get in front of us, which was a bit frustrating on our end. And as you can see, the 2 retirements of Romain Grosjean and Daniel Kvyat. Pascal Wehrlein unfortunately wasn't able to make any manoeuvres, and he finished down as the last remaining runner in the race. We now cut to the Drivers' Championship. Raikkonen still maintains his lead at the top, but his advantage has been cut by Vettel, who moves up into second. Verstappen moves ahead of Ricciardo, and also you can see Felipe Massa and Carlos Sainz have both moved up in their in standings. Massa up into 8th and Sainz up into 10th place. As you can see, we've dropped down into 18th spot for now. We've got plenty of time though to see if we could try and jump up the standings. That's mainly because of the fact that we haven't yet to score in this season. But we're now cut to the Constructors' Championship, and we alongside McLaren are the last 2 teams yet to score, as Toro Rosso were able to score their first points of the season in this race. Williams move in front of Haas F1 into 5th place, but everywhere else looks all the same. Ferrari at the top of the standings at the moment, with Mercedes, Red Bull and Force India rounding off the top 4. And that's going to be the end of today's episode. If you did enjoy it, please leave a like, comment and subscribe for more F1 and Football Manager content on this channel. I'll see you all for the next race, which will be round 4 and the sort of start of the European season with the Russian Grand Prix. So until then, see you later.